You ever seen Lonesome Dove?
Yes.
You like it?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I'm not a dove person. I'm more of a hawk.
Ah, well, then you wouldn't like this one.
That's a good series.
No, it is.
Yeah.
Very good.
I like Robert Duvall.
He's the best.
Yeah.
I think it's his best role.
I do, too. I really do.
That character was made for him.
Yeah.
Although I hear he's a real asshole.
It can be.
You know?
Yeah, no, I don't know. Anybody can be an asshole if they try hard enough. Some people are just overachievers.
Yeah, that's true.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide. And we have a special one for you today, something that people don't often even know about, let alone talk about. But those in the know that they're in the know. And so therefore they know. It's another episode with one of our favorite guests to have. And so, of course, you know it's going to be a good one, although we have no idea what to expect. Our guest today is Charlie Fennell, and we are talking about the Pennsylvania Reserves here at Gettysburg. And we're also going to let Eric shine a little bit because this is one of his favorite subjects. So I'm going to play the student here because I only know a very basic amount of information about the PA Reserves here at Gettysburg. Hardly anything about them prior to the battle. A little bit, but not a lot. So we're going to, I don't know, it's going to be a little different today. Or maybe it won't. Who the hell knows? But don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and make sure that you have your notifications turned on. And also, if you use the Apple Podcast app, please leave a 5-star review. Reviews, liking, and sharing, and subscribing are the best ways to help us grow. And remember, I'm learning, you're learning, so let's learn together with our guest today, Charlie Fennell. Hey, Charlie.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me back.
Always love to have you on, Charlie.
Well, that's good.
We like to laugh, and you make us laugh, and you know, it's fun. The audience loves you too. All right, so Charlie, we're talking about the Pennsylvania Reserves.
Right.
I've heard this question a lot, and I know we have one of these questions at the end, and I'm just going to skip to it now because it's a very basic one. Why were they called the Reserves?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. You know, it's early in the war, 1861. The war was still fairly popular. So popular, in fact, that more people in Pennsylvania wanted to get into the Army than Lincoln required. So he was calling for quotas from the various states based on their population. And so many showed up in Pennsylvania that we had an excess number of people. And so Governor Curtin, in his infinite wisdom, decided to keep them in Harrisburg and train them. And so while a lot of other states sent the excess home, Pennsylvania kept theirs.
The idea being that as they lose men out in the field, they might send them back or down to the Army? Or is that, what was the idea? Or to just protect Pennsylvania?
Maybe they're going to need more men. You know, because it's Lincoln could only call for so many based on the fact that Congress wasn't in session.
Okay.
So based on I think it was a mutiny rule of 1794, which we all know since it's so current. But anyway, it was established that the president, in the case of an emergency, could call for volunteers for a 3-month period without congressional approval.
But the number of volunteers was limited?
Based on the population. Of course, Pennsylvania got in. That's because the war was so popular when it started. Everybody wanted to get in. You don't want to miss this one.
Sure.
You know, and so I think it was and Eric can correct me if I'm wrong because, like I know, he's really up on the reserves. But the
Eric, the producer,
the 5. I think they had 5 brigades. They eventually trained. Was it 5
in the reserves?
Yeah,
it's 3.
Okay,
3.
See, that's what I thought.
So 3 total. 3 total throughout the war.
Yeah. So Pennsylvania's initial quota was 14 regiments. Right. The War Department eventually upped that to 25.
Okay.
And they still had an excess of 30 regiments.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And so Governor Curtin...
What was the population of Pennsylvania at the time?
I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. But,
second highest number in the Union? Volunteers for the war.
Right, for the war.
Second only to New York. But
So go ahead, Eric.
Well, Governor Curtin actually ordered the Pennsylvania state legislation or legislature to come back into session because they were on break essentially, and got them to approve a bill that Pennsylvania would clothe, arm, and equip, train, feed a division, right? And it was supposed to be made up of 13 regiments of infantry, 1 of cavalry, and 1 of artillery. And the purpose, according to the law that was actually passed, I think May 15th of 61, was really to protect the border of Pennsylvania, because at that time you've got this massive southern border with Maryland. Okay,
Right.
so Maryland's loyalties are in question still at this point, but everybody forgets about what we call the Panhandle of West Virginia now. Mm-hmm. Well, that was the Panhandle of Virginia.
That's right.
And that extends north of Pittsburgh
Right,
on the western
right.
border. So you have to secure
Sure.
a huge part of the state's, borders with other states.
And the distance between Virginia and our southern border in this area isn't great.
No.
I mean, even today, it's an hour drive, basically.
Yeah, and if you go over to Chambersburg, it's like 20 miles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
If you go to Hancock, it's 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's close.
yeah
It's
absolutely.
close. So, okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's why they were called the reserves,
Yes.
right? All right. So that is when? In 1861?
61, yeah, sure.
May or so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Early.
How numbers wise, how many men is the Pennsylvania Reserves in that time when they start up?
Well, the brigades in those days were usually about 2,000 men or more.
5,000 or so.
Yeah, so
depending 3 to 5.
So how many regiments were there?
So they were, when they were mustered in, they had roughly 15,000.
15,000.
15,000, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah, because a regiment's 1,000 men roughly
Yeah.
at the early part of the war.
You've
They
got
had 15 regiments.
13 infantry,
13,
1 cavalry,
yeah.
and 1 artillery.
Yeah, you're looking at
And-
15,000.
So that's May of 61.
Yeah.
What is their first battle that they're in?
Is it Drainsville?
Drainsville.
Drainsville. Very good. Okay. I'm quizzing you both off of Eric's notes that I stole.
Did you really steal my notes?
Well, no, I mean, I
didn't
wrote
get
them
notes.
down.
Oh, okay.
Where are my notes?
When you went to the gas station, I went over and I saw your notepad and I go,
It's like I
oh.
spend all day sitting here just madly going through a bunch of regimental history trying to take
and
notes,
then I
and he stole
stole
it.
it in five minutes. All right. So,
Nice guy.
It's an open book test, and he takes the textbook.
He's got the cheat sheet.
who was their first commander?
Jeez.
George A. McCall.
McCall, that's
McCall,
correct.
yeah.
McCall had
Yeah.
been he had been the adjutant or the inspector general of the army,
Right.
Okay.
in the pre-war army. So he's got a fair amount of experience.
Okay, very good, Eric.
Yeah.
You know
I do
your
what I can,
notes.
Yeah.
All right, and then so McCall. Okay, so Drainsville, Battle of Drainsville. Do you know the casualties they took at the Battle of Drainsville?
Not
No.
offhand.
What was the date of the Battle of Drainsville?
I think it's December
December
20th of 61.
Yeah.
That is also correct, according to your notes.
It's good to use good notes.
So they okay, December. So they're in May. December is the first time that they see action. Now, between May and December, though, are they back in Pennsylvania all that time, and then they're sent to the front? How does this? What goes on in that amount of time?
Training.
Training.
Yeah. There is one expedition into Western Maryland by the 5th and 13th Reserves, and I think Battery A of the Artillery Regiment goes with them.
Okay.
It's one of the batteries goes with them. It's either A or B.
Explain to me though. This is something that I remember hearing about, but I don't remember exactly how it worked with the Federal service and the reserve. So let's go back a bit.
Okay.
Lincoln can only call for a certain amount, and Pennsylvania has more than met its quota. And Curtin says, "Well, we're going to hold on to these boys for the defense of Pennsylvania, for whatever, right? They're reserves for whatever you need reserves for." So when they, for example, when they go down into Maryland, you say, is that under Curtin's orders? No, that can't be.
Yes.
You're kidding.
So Curtin was. Don't forget who was the not Minister of War. God.
The
Secretary of War, Simon Cameron.
Simon Cameron of
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania boy.
Okay.
So he knows he knows Andrew Curtin very well. And
Right.
Simon Cameron actually petitioned Curtin to send 2 regiments into Western Maryland to relieve the 11th Indiana, Lew Wallace's Zouaves,
Right,
who are out
yeah.
at Cumberland,
Okay.
because they are worried about a possible Confederate incursion into Western Pennsylvania through the Cumberland, Maryland area.
Okay. So there are
But they're
already
still
Union troops
in-
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're still in state service.
They're not. must
They're
have
not
been-
federalized
That's
yet.
right.
Right. Okay. So that's what I'm getting to. When do they become federalized, and what brings that about?
Well, it get federalized after First Manassas or Bull Run doesn't turn out the way the North thought it would.
They're like, oh, we might need these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So then they expand because Congress is in session now.
And they've raised the amount of volunteers
Yeah, they
that
start
Lincoln
calling
can
for-
ask for. So
Yeah.
now it's okay. Now there's room for them.
Then they start mustering them in to the federal service.
Got it. Okay. So then now December, Drainsville. Did I ask you how many casualties they took?
You did.
Yeah.
I can look it up real quick, but
Okay. Well,
there's only one brigade involved.
Right.
And they are essentially fighting a mixed composition brigade under command of Jeb Stuart.
Okay.
And they basically rout Stuart off the field. They 2 of the regiments get on his left flank, and Stuart's defense at Drainsville collapses, and off they run.
Okay.
So it's one of the earlier
So it's not a
federal victories.
It's not a huge battle where they're going to take a lot of
It's-
casualties yet.
correct, but
Right.
it's also coming right on the heels of Ball's Bluff,
Yes.
which is for that period a massive federal defeat. Even though there's like exactly one brigade involved, it's this huge defeat because
Right.
Edward Baker gets killed. Right, Drainsville is the kind of like the ointment for that wound.
Got it.
Because it's like the same week, if not the same day. I can't remember offhand when
very
Ball's Bluff
very
was.
close.
It's
Wasn't Ball's
really
Bluff
close.
right after Manassas?
No, it's
No,
in the
it's-
winter.
It was later?
Yeah, it's later. Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, well, so while you're looking that up there, let's move it along then. So the next big, I guess, campaign that they get into would be what?
Well, they're in the peninsula.
Oh, that's what I'm looking
Yeah.
for, the Peninsula.
Yes.
Okay, so the Peninsula campaign, do they see a lot of action at that time?
No, yeah, they fought.
The Confederates.
No, they fought at. Well, they're in the trenches at Yorktown,
Okay.
and then they were involved to some degree in the Battle of Williamsburg, and then of course the 7 days is when they're really going to see some action
Right.
because they're on the flank that Lee's hitting. There they were involved, of course, in the, what is that, Beaver Dam Creek or whatever, Beaver Dam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're pretty heavily involved
Yeah,
in
they are.
Mechanicsville, Gaines's
Yeah.
Mill.
Yeah. So
A lot of
they-
people call it Glendale. They always
Glendale,
referred to
right.
it as Newmarket Crossroads.
Yeah.
And they're in reserve at Malvern Hill.
Right.
So you mentioned Mechanicsville, and according to my notes that I stole from Eric, there's 7,000 strong at Mechanicsville.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
that's where I was kind of getting at when I was asking about casualties, because they start 15,000 in May.
Sure.
They don't see any real action.
There's-
So this is disease.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of it's disease being discharged on surgeon certificates, stuff like that.
Right, medical
'Cause
reasons.
There's according to Ousel Ent, there's 71 casualties at Drainsville.
Okay.
So it's not a super bloody fight, but it's
And it was
It's
71
important.
casualties out of one brigade of the division.
Out of
right?
one brigade,
Okay.
yeah.
So
they also, by the time of the Peninsula Campaign, they've lost the cavalry regiment and the artillery. Because those
Because
are all
they've
being consolidated
restructured.
by the Army.
Yeah.
So it's now just the 13 regiments of infantry.
okay, 7,000 men. That's still though. That's a big drop from
Sure.
15.
Yeah.
All right. So what's after the peninsula for them?
Well, the 7 days.
Okay, 7 days.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
7 days. The emergence of Lee.
Bobby Lee.
Yeah,
Lee takes command.
that's right.
And they're hit
And-
pretty hard.
Yeah,
What's
they are hit hard. They're under
okay.
Porter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Porter's
Fitzjohn?
Fitzjohn.
Yes,
yeah,
Fitzjohn.
Yeah.
If I ever have a kid, I'm going to name him Fitzjohn.
Well, you should.
Yeah. And then every time like he gets a new pair of shoes or a hat or something, I'll say, "This hat fits John." Fits John. Okay, stupid. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
but
sorry.
if you follow Peninsula, Lee determined to take his men around and strike the flank. The one thing they're very concerned about in the Confederacy, and Joe Johnston, and Lee and Davis are all on the same page. If they allow the Federal Army to lay siege on Richmond, they're going to lose it.
Okay.
Okay, so the one thing they can't compete with is a siege with McClellan's army with his big guns. So McClellan's slowly moving up the peninsula, fighting the war the only way he can't be defeated, very careful, calculating, cautious there. And so when he gets to 5 miles from Richmond, part of his army's on the other side of Chickahominy.
Okay.
And that's where Lee decides to strike. And what he's doing, and this is kind of interesting because the Lee we know is not the Lee that emerged initially. He's having his men dig trenches and things like that, and people are complaining, that there's no aggression here. We got to attack the Yankees. What good's a general that won't fight? Granny Lee, the King of Spades. It's not a complimentary thing. And so what does Lee do? Davis comes out and they talk. They're only 5 miles apart, And he explains what he's doing. He said, I'm having these men dig trenches so I can take men from the trenches en masse for an assault on McClellan's flank. Okay, if McClellan had done that with Lincoln, he might have been in the command at the end of the war. But he keeps Lincoln at a distance where Lee brings Davis into the thought process, explains what he's going to do. And so Davis said, well, that makes sense to me. Go ahead and do it.
Leads the boss.
He does. And so then when Lee strikes, the blows fall essentially, as Eric was pointing out, on Porter's 5th Corps, and there's the reserves.
Right.
And so they get hammered. And in the series, I always tell people that, they struck the Union Army. They fought seven days, and Jackson was supposed to seal the deal by going around and getting behind him on the flank. He was late for 7 days. Okay, so what you have is pretty much a slugfest.
Right.
Especially at Gaines Mill. I mean, that was the Confederates charged up right into the center of the Union line at Porter. So you think at Gettysburg, what Pinkett's doing Pickett's charge is not that unusual if you follow Gaines Mill and Hood's attack. If you've ever been there, it's a rugged ground. It's a deep depression. It's marshy. It's and the Federals have the advantage of position, and Hood carried it. And so this is where I think this is where the reserves take their big casualties. One of the reasons they're not with the Army initially in the Gettysburg campaign is they're resting. They're part of the defenses of Washington. I mean, they've seen the war.
What was the 87th PA one of the regiments in the reserves?
No.
Okay.
No.
The only 2 regiments that were ever added to the reserves, and they were only temporarily, was the 121st and 142nd PA that are in Biddle's Brigade here. But they're removed from the reserve division after Fredericksburg when the rest of the reserves are sent to D.C. And there's something that we should probably bring up because it's pertinent now. The initial 3 brigade commanders of the division.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And these are big names.
Sure.
John Reynolds, John Fulton Reynolds.
I've heard of him. John F. and Reynolds.
George Gordon Meade.
G.G. Meade.
And Edward Otho Cresap Ord. Who, if you're familiar with Western campaign stuff, he ends up commanding the 13th, 18th Corps, the 24th Corps, and the Army of the James right at the end of the war.
Yeah.
And there's a story that he's the one who suggested to Longstreet that if Lee is thinking of maybe surrendering, that he and Grant should probably get together and sit down. Now, is that true? I don't know. But that is something that's told about Ord.
I purposely skipped over that in the notes that I stole from you so that you could say that.
Oh, good.
Because I wanted to give you a moment to share.
Yeah. Well, Ord's a Grant boy. Grant likes
I was hoping you would have caught me before. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ord's one of Grant's favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he kind of promoted him in the Western Theater and then brings him east.
Yeah.
And
I think there's a story I remember reading about this campaign when the Confederates, I don't remember who, were coming through Chambersburg or in that area. a woman recognized her husband's knapsack. Do you remember the story?
Oh yeah.
And the person telling the story said that that she asked for it back. The guy gave it to her, and he said that it was stolen from a dead Pennsylvania reserveman, and she recognized her husband's.
Wow.
Yeah, and he says that he captured it at Gaines's Mill.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a dead bucktail, he says.
Oh, it was a bucktail.
Bucktail, yeah.
Oh,
Which
that's
is,
right. Okay.
They are the reserves.
They are.
Oh, that's true.
reserves.
Yeah.
Yeah. 13.
Okay. No, yeah. Okay. So now, where did we leave off? We're still at the peninsula?
Yeah, we're at Gaines's Mill.
Gaines's Mill. Okay.
And like Charlie was saying, it's a slugfest. The reserves don't really go into action as a division. They're kind of used to plug holes in the line.
Okay.
So if you look at a battle map of Gaines's Mill, there's like all these random units, and then there's one reserve regiment there, and then you go down a little bit, and there's another one or two or three.
So they're not fighting together.
No.
But
They're
that's where
being used as reserves.
Gaines's Mill
This is reserves. There you
is
go.
where the 11th Reserves, almost the full regiment, is captured.
Yeah.
As well as John Reynolds.
Yeah.
John Reynolds is captured there.
Okay, so move along.
Okay.
Go ahead if you want to.
No, that's good.
Move on to the next
Well,
one. What's
Reynolds
the-
was left behind. Didn't he fall asleep? And
Yeah.
he was sleeping, and they left, and they didn't tell him.
He
And
was
he wakes up, and there's
Oh,
a-
yeah.
Yeah, he was sleep deprived for like 2 or
Yeah,
3
he was.
days.
Yeah, he was exhausted.
He found a
Exhausted.
nice place to lay down and take a nap.
and he was out.
And then
WT.
everybody ditched him, and he woke up with a couple of guys from his staff
Yeah.
with Confederates all the way around him.
Yeah.
And he just stood up. And D.H. Hill, he spoke to
Yeah.
D.H. Hill right after he'd been captured. And D.H. Hill told him, there's no shame in it, Reynolds. It's just the fortune of war.
Yeah.
I was like,
That was nice of him.
okay. Fair enough, dude.
Thanks, DH. 3,045 casualties, Eric.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're 1/15th of the Army of the Potomac's manpower, and they account for 1/5
Fifth, yes.
of the Army's casualties during the 7 days. Yeah.
Yes, there was some pretty good fighting there.
And Meade is wounded.
Yes.
So Meade's wounded. Reynolds is captured.
Where's
George McCall is captured as well.
He is, yeah.
So they're missing the division commander and 2 of the brigade commanders by the end of it. And there's a story out of the 13th Reserves, right? 4 companies of the 13th Reserves had been split off and sent to the valley,
Right.
right? CG, H, and I. 2 companies were captured en masse during the 7 days.
Okay.
Right, at different times. One company, I think it's Company K, kind of eludes capture in the swamps on the peninsula for like 3 days. And they finally get caught trying to cross a road. But anyways, so they're captured, right? Their colonel was a guy named Hugh McNeil, and when they were moving from D.C. down to the peninsula, they went overland. So they went from D.C. to Fredericksburg, and then from Fredericksburg they moved to White House Landing. And then they caught up with the Army. And McNeil was taken ill at Fredericksburg, and he was sent to the hospital. And he didn't catch up to them until after the 7 days is over. And as his regiment is filing in to Harrison's Landing, there's only 64 of them in line. That's it. That's all that remains of the 6 companies that he sent to the peninsula. 2 of them are captured, and everybody else is either killed, wounded, or captured. So it's not. These guys take quite a beating during the 7 days.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, they're not really in reserve. They're in the front
No,
line.
yeah.
They're getting hammered. Yeah.
So what then after the 7 days? Do they get a little rest and relaxation somewhere? Maybe they get to go to Paris or something like that? No. What
Won't go that
happens to
far.
them?
Well, like I said, they eventually wind up in the D.C. defenses.
Isn't that later, though?
Yeah, they end up.
Or
right
is it-
before the Gettysburg came.
They end
Yeah.
up joining Pope
Right.
for the Second Manassas campaign.
There you go. So Second Manassas, they're at Second Manassas. How do they fare there?
Not great.
No.
Not great at all.
Pope's
no.
Army
No,
didn't
Pope's
fare
Army didn't do
No.
well at all.
And,
So
and Reynolds, who's in command of the First Corps at this point, which is the 3rd Corps of the Army of Virginia, but it becomes the First Corps in the Army of the Potomac.
Right.
They are kind of making a last stand on Henry House Hill to try to stave off Longstreet's Corps from just wiping the Army of the Potomac off the face of the earth.
yeah.
So they do not fare well at all.
No, they don't.
the 4 companies of the 13th Reserves that had gone to the Valley, they haven't rejoined the regiment yet. And they end up fighting at Chantilly, which is the next day. And it's like in a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
It's a weird battle.
You know, when I went to school in Fairfax at George Mason, there was a marker to where Kearney was hit.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And it was like surrounded by townhouses.
Yeah, sure is.
Is it close to George Mason?
Chantilly's not far.
No,
Okay, because my sister lives like 10 minutes away from George Mason.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that whole area is like, it's like North Jersey. Everything's just strung together.
Who was the other division commander? Stevens? Is that who else was killed at Chantilly?
Oh, I'm not sure.
There was 2 of them. It was I
I
think it was Stevens and Kearney were the 2 that were killed there. It's a little battle, but you got to lose
might
2
be
division
Stevens.
commanders.
Yeah, no, yeah. It was little, but not quite in the losses there. With
And he has a marker there too, and it's in a housing development.
yeah.
I don't know how he could get killed in a housing development.
That's
I think everything down
It's
there.
like, how did they get him with all these condos
I mean,
around?
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. That's why you have preservation.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's exactly right.
Well, you know, another thing, the ones that went to the Valley of the 13th, they actually, one of them, they were the ones that responsible for killing Turner Ashby.
Yeah, at Harrisonburg.
Harrisonburg.
Yeah.
And they have a marker there where he supposedly was killed.
I've been to that. Guess where that is?
Yeah.
In
a
the middle of
housing
a housing
development.
Yeah,
development.
it's not. When I first went down there was nothing there. And then they put in that football stadium.
Yeah.
And then the houses started going in. So
That's
they
terrible.
left a little park there. Wasn't that nice of them?
Yeah, you know, you would think as like the heart of the Civil War, Virginia would have done a better job of preserving some of this stuff.
Well,
But, I mean,
you gotta house all those suburbanites.
yeah, well, that's true. All the
trying to-
Yankees coming down,
They're trying to get the money back that we stole from them.
I guess. All right, so Second Manassas don't do too well. Now they get a break, right? No,
really,
no. Oh, jeez. What? Okay. Well, what happens to them next?
Well, there's Antietam.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're at Antietam.
But they're
Okay.
at the 5th Corps wasn't.
They're not
really
5th
engaged.
Corps at this point. They're
They're
first.
They're
Of
with
course, correct.
Hooker, right? Under
Yeah.
Hooker.
Yeah, they're under
Well,
Hooker.
who's their commander? At that, is that Meade
of the division.
of the division?
It's technically Reynolds, but Reynolds has been detached because Andrew Curtin has been losing his mind
Right,
in
that's true.
Harrisburg because
Yeah.
the rebels are coming.
Right.
So he's detached and sent back to Harrisburg to organize the state militia. So Meade is in temporary command of the division.
Okay. All right. And how did they do at Antietam?
Well, South Mountain, they go into the Battle of South Mountain with something like 3,000 men, maybe 3,700 altogether. I had it written down somewhere, but I don't remember.
Someone took
Not in the
your
notes I saw.
Yeah, it might have been on one of those sticky notes somewhere. But they're on Hooker's right at the Battle of Turner's Gap, and they play a pretty instrumental role in taking Turner's Gap. But then they move to Antietam with the rest of the First Corps, and they're heavily involved in clearing out the East Woods and the cornfield.
Right. Yeah.
After Antietam, what happens to them?
What else could happen?
Well, what comes next for the Army of the Potomac?
Well, there's a
Fredericksburg.
nice big rest up there for a while.
Oh, yeah,
They
sure,
just
sure.
hang out
Sure,
a bit.
sure.
But then Burnside is put in charge.
He sure is.
And he's got some plans. Mm-hmm. And that ends up as the Battle of Fredericksburg. So what happens there? Are they there, or are they now? Do they get their R&R?
Oh, they're there.
Oh,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
there.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Jeez.
But they're not going up against the stone wall. Are
No, they sure
No,
are.
they're not.
No.
It's down there by the pyramid.
Yeah.
Where are they? Where are they? What do they do?
They are the only like division-sized element or even brigade-sized element or above that actually makes a breakthrough anywhere in Lee's line. And it's essentially the middle of A.P. Hill's division of Stonewall Jackson's corps.
Right.
They punch a hole at Prospect Hill. Gibbon's division is sent forward to try to exploit this break in the line, but it's not quite enough. And Gibbon's division is fairly slaughtered over at what's called Slaughter Pen Farm.
Slaughter Pen Farm, yeah.
And the
Aptly
reserves are like decimated because they stand in this hole in the line trying to retain this breakthrough for between 20 and 30 minutes. And they're just being assaulted from three sides, along with 54 guns that Jackson has, like right there defending his line. Mm-hmm. So they're just pouring everything into the reserves.
How is anybody left standing?
Well, there weren't too many, as it turns out.
And I don't know if you mentioned this. Their commander at this point is who?
George Meade.
George Meade.
Yeah.
Okay,
Reynolds
still Meade.
Reynolds has taken full command of the First Corps at this point.
Right.
Okay. All right. So Fredericksburg, another not so fun time for them. It really wasn't fun for the whole army.
Yeah, I don't
right?
think so.
No.
Yeah.
But
They're having a rough time of it.
yeah.
I don't remember anybody writing home like letters home
like,
saying,
"Gee,
"Oh
baby."
man, we had the best time down in Virginia this December."
Yeah.
You really got to come visit.
Yeah, come on down.
Next time we have a good weekend, we'll take a trip down here and you'll see how great it is. All right, so now Battle of Fredericksburg is over. The Mud March is going to be the next big thing. Do they partake in that, or
They do.
they do?
Actually,
Okay.
yeah.
And do they get stuck in the mud too, or are they?
Everybody did.
Oh, they
Sure,
did.
yeah.
They didn't figure a way out of the mud. They just
No.
kept on going. All right, and then so after that, what happens to them? Where do they go? Are they just hanging around till Chancellorsville?
February 5th of 63, they're pulled off the line.
Oh, okay. Where
And they're-
so now they get some R&R.
Yeah, they're sent and they're attached to the 22nd Corps, which is the defenses of Washington, and they're garrisoning some forts. They're also protecting the B&O railroad at various points along the line in western or like central and western Maryland.
Yeah.
They're the real purpose of that is like the reserves almost cease to exist
Yeah.
after Fredericksburg.
How
And so,
how large are they at that point?
Oh, offhand, there's probably 3,000
I
of
was
them
going to say about
3,000
out of the initial 15,000.
So not yet 2 years, and they've gone from 15,000 to 3,000.
Yeah,
Battles, disease, restructuring.
There's not a lot left there.
Yeah. Okay. So so they're going back to kind of recuperate and maybe
They're trying to recruit losses. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, so the summer before, when the Army was laid up at Harrison's Landing, they start sending officers to Pennsylvania on recruiting service, and the 13th Reserves actually put forth this idea to Governor Curtin that instead of just trying to replace their losses, why don't we recruit a whole brigade of Bucktails? And so the idea is we're going to recruit 4 regiments of Bucktail Regiments to send to the Army. When that doesn't happen, it ends up being 2, the 149th and 150th PA, who come back here to fight.
Okay.
But
Bogus Bucktails.
Yeah.
The bogus Bucktails. That's right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then Chancellorsville happens. They miss Chancellorsville altogether, right? But then now so next after Chancellorsville is the Battle of Gettysburg, the Gettysburg campaign. So how do they get involved with the Army for Gettysburg?
Well, Meade needs troops. Keep in mind that after Chancellorsville, you add up the losses, and then the 2-year regiments, a lot of them didn't re-up. So you're going to lose almost as many regiments who didn't re-up as men lost in the battle. So you have a severe manpower drain on the Union Army.
Right.
Okay. And as it becomes obvious that the Confederates are moving on another invasion of the North, possibly for Pennsylvania, Lincoln is trying to strengthen the Army in terms of numbers. And basically, if you're between Lee and D.C., you don't need a lot of people in the defenses. Because
Sure.
Lee's got most of the Confederate Army with him.
Right.
So they took 2 brigades. They left one behind.
Right.
Yeah, under Malgalt. But they left one behind and put
Under
2.
who?
Malgalt, is that his name? Maullt, I forget.
Malgott?
Yeah.
I was thinking it was Maggleton.
Maggleton, that's him, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was
Yeah,
McGilton.
I thought it was Maggot myself, but I knew that wasn't
Okay,
right.
Maggleton.
Yeah, Maggleton.
Yeah.
And they left them behind, and then Fisher and McCandless Brigade are added to the Army of the Potomac under Crawford. The only problem was they weren't added right away. And so as the Union Army's moving, they said, well, you got to join the Union Army. Well, where is it? Well, it's up in Maryland headed for Pennsylvania. Go catch up.
Go find it.
Go find it. And so they're assigned to the 5th Corps, and the 5th Corps isn't in the vicinity. So they're always like a day behind.
Okay.
Trying to catch up.
Okay.
And then just before the battle, they marched a fairly, I think they said one kind I read said they marched like for 22 hours, trying to catch up. And finally, they were ordered to finally get sleep at 3 a.m. in the morning of July the 1st, and then 5 o'clock reveille sounds, and you're back at it.
God.
Okay, and then finally they catch up on July 2nd.
All right.
And they're assigned to the 5th Corps again. So that's how they get here.
So they get here on July 2nd. Around what time do they get here on July 2nd?
Well, it would be sometime early morning.
Early morning.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so they're kind of just hanging out in reserve.
Yeah, they
where?
weren't
At the
too
Weicker
far
Farm?
away. Yeah, well, they're with the 5th Corps over there.
Over there, yeah.
And then eventually the 5th Corps starts moving to the other side. Now it's about, 3 to 5 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame, they're ordered south.
Right.
To support Sickles.
Right.
And that's how they start moving into the vicinity of the Round Tops.
But now the Pennsylvania Reserves, they don't really get into the action down there until almost at the end of it, right?
Well,
It's basically over.
Well, if you're looking at the movie, they missed it.
They missed it altogether.
Missed the movie. They got there after the shooting was done.
Right.
Okay, because essentially the fight for Little Round Top that everyone knows is over.
Right, it's taken out. Yeah.
Okay,
Chamberlain's got time to give water to people. And
right.
Yeah.
So they're mostly northern slope, and no one cares about the northern slope of Little Round Top. It's always the southern slope.
Yeah.
But that's where they are.
So they come after Chamberlain, after Vincent's brigade and Weed's brigade and all that.
Right.
All the fighting on the southern slope and the western slope.
It's pretty much over.
It's over.
Yeah.
But what's going on that makes them necessary on the northern slope of Little Round Top and Munshowers Hill and all that?
Okay, well, what's going on is Wofford's brigade's advancing. And Wofford's brigade is in the final surge of Longstreet's 8 brigades. And I always say it's like football. Barksdale cleared the way in the peach orchard. And then Wofford comes right behind him. And he comes straight down the Wheatfield Road. And that crushes all Union resistance in his wake. And so, you already got Barksdale driving Union troops of the 3rd Corps north. Now Wofford comes, and he's going to clear the Wheatfield. He's going to move through the Wheatfield, push on there. And the remnants of those regiments from, 3 Corps are trying to get out of the way. And so what you see, and at that point, the reserves, at least 1 brigade and 1 regiment, are on the northern slope of Little Round Top.
Right.
Under Crawford. Fisher's men have been sent over the hill to the southern end, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a little bit there. But they're standing there and they're watching this, and they have a great view of it, although it's getting dark, and there's smoke. And so I don't know, there's close to 5,000 Confederates coming down the road, which is twice the number that assaulted the southern end of the hill.
Right.
And so they're organized, and they're standing there and they're watching this. And Gibbs Battery is there. Now, Gibbs Battery's monument's up on Little Round Top, but they weren't there. Don't tell anyone I told you that.
I won't tell you that.
Especially people from Ohio. They get upset with me. But anyway, Gibbs Battery's straddling the Wheatfield Road.
Okay.
And one section is to the south, and the other sections are to the north. And they're looking like they're going to retreat because there doesn't seem to be any support when supposedly some of the reserves came forward and said, don't worry, we're here. We won't let them get your guns. Okay, where were you guys before, type of thing. And so they're going to support Gibbs Battery as that. But they have to wait till the Union troops clear the field.
Right.
Because they're running in front of the Confederates.
Right.
Until they clear the field, then before they can fire the guns or even advance or fire volleys from the reserves. So they see the Union line collapsing. They see Sickles' line collapse in front of them.
Okay. And by the way, folks listening at home, if you have the Llano map, it's on page 265 where we're kind of setting it up here and everything. And also for those of you in the who are watching on YouTube, this is the book that I'm talking about. So you can get it. You can find it on addressinggettysburg.com/books. You can find it on all over the place. Amazon. Come to the visitor center here. They're everywhere. Or you can go to forthehistorian.com and get a hold of it, I'm sure. It's very helpful to have this when you're listening to one of these Ask a Guides because it can get a little confusing.
Yeah, and you also can see if we're telling the truth or not.
Exactly. Yes. And if you find a mistake that Charlie made, send an email to matt@addressinggettysburg.com and I will read it on the next show.
There you go.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I wanted to make sure we got this out for everybody.
Yeah, that's a good map to show what's going on in front of Crawford's men.
Yeah. So basically, the wheat field is now cleared of any Union troops.
True. Yeah.
You've got, 1, 2, 3, 4 Confederate brigades all kind of like converging on that area and sweeping through it. And McCandless's brigade, one of the reserve brigades, is getting into position on the northern slope, western face of Little Round Top.
Correct.
And so these Confederates, Eric and I were talking before we started here, before you got here, these Confederates must have been feeling elation and we got them on the run. We're going to get that hill. And then boom, there's the reserves.
Right.
And then they must have felt completely defeated. Eric, what was the story you told me about when you were in the Army?
So I had a company commander who loved to do this. He'd take you out on a company run, and they suck because they're slow. They're annoying. And you would come back and you would think you were ending because you're coming to the barracks, right? This is where the run stops. And he would run you right past the barracks and take you for another half a mile. And the 4 miles before that were like nothing. They were annoying. But that last half a mile, after he crushed your hopes and dreams when he passed the barracks, were like a slugfest. It was awful.
Yeah.
And it has to be like the same feeling.
Oh,
just
yeah.
You're just like
demoralization.
completely defeated at that point.
Yeah. And so, okay, so what happens then? The Confederates, they've cleared out the wheat field. There's no more Yankees there. What happens? What do they find?
Well, they find the reserves and some artillery. They overran, Martin's battery. I don't even think he got a round off till they overrun him. And they keep rolling now. Of course, the reserves are mostly, I guess, south of the Wheatfield Road. There's some elements of the 6th Corps moving in too, like Nevin's brigade and so forth. But as they approach the guns, that's when Crawford orders them in to fire, and then eventually they're going to charge down the hill.
Okay.
Okay. Now, at the same time, what you have is Longstreet is realizing that the attack is kind of spent.
Petering out.
Yeah, and so he's going to start giving orders for the men to fall back. So you have this situation where the Confederates are trying to fall back to defensible ground while the reserves are attacking. But it was their attack that stopped the momentum of the Confederate advance.
Okay.
So in that respect, I think they contribute as much to saving Little Round Top as Chamberlain and his men.
Perhaps
Okay.
more.
Perhaps more. That's right.
Eric certainly thinks so, right, Eric?
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, one of the most romanticized episodes of the battle that's all but forgotten today was of the reserves charging across the Valley of Death. Mm-hmm. There's a big painting. What was it? Rothermel did that?
There's a couple of them. Rothermel did one.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pull that up right now, as a matter of fact.
There's one up there. That's Crawford. He's on the horse with the flag. He's leading the charge.
Yeah,
Across there. Yeah.
And the one that's on the screen right now is the one that's in the state capitol building.
Okay.
Where it's the charge of the reserves, but you're looking at it from the Confederate perspective. So you see Big Round Top and Little Round Top, and the reserves are just sweeping across the valley floor. But yeah, there's a couple of those out there.
Okay. Crawford used to own that land there in the Valley of Death.
Yeah.
He wanted them to put up a monument to the reserves. When they refused, he said, "We're not putting monuments up on my land." At least that's the way the story goes. A little oversimplification.
Didn't he want it to be like a building, like a big,
he did.
huge...
He did. Yeah, like the Pennsylvania Reserve.
Yeah, right.
Like a Pennsylvania monument.
Right.
Let's build one for the reserves.
It was supposed to be the Pennsylvania Reserve Volunteer Corps Memorial Hall.
They need a big building
huge.
for the
It was
title.
like,
can you imagine?
Like Charlie, Soldiers and Sailors in Oakland, right?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
like that size.
Wow.
And I'm putting up the
Oh, good. You got a
the
picture.
concept sketch of it right now for the people who are watching.
Can you imagine that, ladies and gentlemen,
massive.
in the Valley of Death?
Yeah.
Where was it going to be? Like right on the corner of Wheatfield Road and
Yeah,
Crawford?
probably. They're pretty close.
I've
there.
always suspected there, but it's so swampy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Gary Edelman made reference to it being on Little Round Top, but
Well,
Well,
I
it'd
think
have
he
to be
was
north of Little Round
Crawford
Top.
never
Yeah.
owned any land
No, he
on
didn't.
Little
No.
Round Top.
Right.
I've always kind of felt after that maybe it was that little knoll that the regulars monuments are on. Oh. Because he owned Houck's Ridge.
He did, yes.
Yeah.
He owned everything basically from the crest of Houck's Ridge east to like a little way up the western slope of Little Round Top,
right.
but not by much.
Mm-hmm.
And everything from the Wheatfield Road south to just south of Devil's Den. I actually have
That's
that
crazy.
map. You guys can look at it.
So,
here in a sec.
but he, I think, I think Gary was just using Little Round Top as like a general
I don't
location,
know.
just so people.
There's not much information out there about it. Most of what I know is it actually comes from two sources. There's in the Attorney General's rulings from 1889. There's a section about where they're denying the request of the reserves to pool their monument money together to build this.
Okay.
Right. So there's a couple of things that happen there. The reserves want to build this. They know that every regiment in the state that was present at Gettysburg has money allocated to them for a monument. It's $1,500 a regiment. What they want to do is pool all of their money together to build this one monument.
Right.
But it's still not going to be enough to build that gargantuan thing. So they're going to need...
We have to sell pencils.
Yeah, they're going to need extra money on top
Have
of
a
it.
bake sale.
And essentially what it boils down to is it goes before the legislature and it ends up in front of the Attorney General in like May or June of 1889.
Yeah.
And he denies it because it's not within the spirit of the legislation that was passed to fund all these things. And they say on top of that, you had one full brigade that wasn't present.
That's right.
Even if you were allowed to do this, you couldn't because as a body, your division wasn't actually here. It was two brigades of your division.
Okay.
There we
And
go.
they further said that if you wanted to go this route and put up a division monument, you were going to get $1,500 for a division monument, not $1,500
Yeah.
times 9 regiments to put one here.
Yeah.
And it gets denied. Well, Pennsylvania Days in September of 1889. This ruling doesn't come down until June. So it's too late for them to design monuments, have them cut and erected in time to be dedicated in September. So the Pennsylvania Reserves actually have a separate dedication day in 1890 because they were not able to do it with everybody else in 1889.
Have you ever come across anything that indicates what the material that thing would have been made out of? Granite.
Yeah.
Granite and steel because there had to be a steel structure.
Good
Right.
God.
It was huge. I think the proposed dimensions were like 130 by 110 feet, something like that. It's massive.
Can you imagine
If
that?
anybody's familiar with Pittsburgh and you've been to Soldiers and Sailors
Yeah,
Memorial
yeah.
Hall in Oakland, it's like roughly the size of Soldiers and Sailors, which is like half a city block.
I'm so glad that never happened.
I
Yeah,
really want to
yeah.
see it.
I mean, you know what I'd like to see somebody do, and maybe someone in our audience is diligent enough and talented enough to do this. And please, if you are, please do this, and we'll show everybody your wonderful skills. But I would love to see like an artist's rendering of what the like get a picture. Like done through a computer, not a
Right.
painting. Like get a picture of the area where we think it might have been or what it's going to be, and then get the plans for this thing. Eric, you could probably help them find it and make it.
Like I said, there's only 2 places I've ever seen it referenced.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you're
it's-
going to have to
it's
do some
the
digging.
Attorney General's minutes, essentially, from 1889, and a reunion booklet from the 13th Reserves Regimental Association, a reunion they did in, I think, 1888 or 89, which is also the only place I've ever found that concept drawing from. And they say in the booklet that this was received from the Reserves Association, because they had, like, the Reserve Division had a Veterans Association as well.
You could Photoshop the building in Oakland.
Yeah,
And,
basically.
I mean, it's close to the size, right, Eric? I mean,
It's massive.
Yeah, and you could get a sense of
Put
what
that
it looks
picture.
like.
Put that picture up again.
Sure.
So I can just take a look at this because I forget what it looked like.
It is
Bear with us, ladies and gentlemen.
gargantuan.
That's
Right there she
ridiculous.
is. Look
Hold
at
on a
that.
second. Let me come over there.
Look at the size of the little people in front of it, you know?
Oh,
They're tiny.
It's like St. Patrick's Cathedral.
It's also supposed to be. It was
huge.
also supposed to be a museum, but like a document repository.
Right, like a research
Like a library.
center.
Yeah.
That's right.
Like they legitimately wanted to compile all of the records, paraphernalia, ephemera, whatever, from the reserves in that one place.
That would have been so cool, though.
It would have been awesome to see it
but put it
and see
somewhere
all
else.
of the stuff that they could have brought
Brought
together from
at
it.
that
Yeah.
time.
But it would have
sure.
been a really unfortunate place to put it.
Totally, absolutely unfortunate. All
It
right,
was like the cyclorama.
yeah, right. All right, so where did we leave off with the battle then? So
We have the reserve stopping the Confederate surge.
McCandless stops the surge across the Plum Run Valley there,
Right.
Valley of Death. But you mentioned Fisher before.
I did.
Now, he's the other brigade
He is.
in the reserves that's present here,
Yeah.
or that are present here. Where does he go? You said he went to the southern slope, the saddle.
He went up Little Round Top to support Weed and Vincent.
Okay.
That's what he was supposed to do. And he takes his regiments over the top of Little Round Top and down into the saddle. Now he's minus the 40th. Pennsylvania, 11th Reserves, depending on how you want to number it. But those regiments then were eventually, long story short, I mean, there was a lot of back and forth here. He maintains that he led two of his regiments with the 20th Maine to the top of Big Round Top, okay, and then secured that position because they were getting fire from Confederate sharpshooters.
Yeah.
They were firing down and annoying the troops, the Union troops in the saddle, so somebody had to go clear them out. And they were worried, of course, the Confederates would use that hill to maybe mask movements the next day around the right. General Longstreet would be very happy with that. We'd go around to the right, okay. And so they went up. Now, there's a number of things, and Eric probably knows the sequence better, but eventually, according to Chamberlain, Fisher didn't get his men organized in time, and so Rice orders Chamberlain to go up on his own. And then
Colonel Rice is in command of Vincent's brigade because Vincent's
mortally
dead.
wounded.
So Colonel Rice is the
Colonel
new
Rice,
commander.
44th New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's killed in the wilderness. But that's another story. Okay, but anyhow, so Chamberlain goes up, secures a position. Supposedly some of the men of the reserves, according to Chamberlain now, came up, Confederates fired on him, or somebody fired on him, ran back down the hill.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Fisher won't order his men up. And according to Chamberlain, he said, you lead because my men have inadequate firearms. According to Chamberlain. Remember that, Eric? He said, well, you have inadequate firearms. Yeah. Well, what are you doing here then? I mean,
That's like my biggest beef with Chamberlain is how he treats Fisher.
Yeah, I know. Well, didn't they have inadequate firearms the whole war?
Right. You couldn't have picked some up. There had to have been plenty laying around.
Yeah, look at John Burns. He picked up a Gatling gun.
Absolutely.
I mean, no, he picked up a gun. They're laying around.
Well, is that the source of your hatred of Chamberlain, Eric?
I don't really have a hatred of Chamberlain.
Well,
I have a general disdain for the 20th Maine because I think they get focused on way too much. But Chamberlain rubs me the wrong way with the way he deals with, I don't know, making himself bigger. Because if I understand it correctly, and there's like 3 different versions of the story, depending on who you want to hear. Right. Yes, the 20th Maine and the 83rd PA go up Big Round Top first. Right, they're ordered up to secure it. Fisher doesn't follow with them because as they're coming on to Little Round Top on the north end,
Right.
Crawford's now fixated on the issues with the wheat field. And so he's essentially just telling Fisher, hey, give me the 11th reserves. You take the 5th, 9th, 10th, and 12th and go over there somewhere and do good things, right? So they get off to the left, and they kind of pull in behind Vincent's brigade, and they don't have any orders to do anything else at this point.
That's true.
Well, the 20th Maine and the 83rd PA get ordered forward. They go up Big Round Top. And Fisher's still there waiting for Crawford to tell him what to do, which happens relatively quickly after, like maybe 15, 20 minutes, and Crawford comes over and says, hey, I want you to basically anchor your right here where the 83rd PA was and extend your line up to the crest of Big Round Top. And so that's what they do. And that's why the 9th Reserve's monument is right on Warren Avenue.
And facing west.
Facing west, just as you're coming up to the stop signs in the saddle.
Yeah.
There. And so it's the 9th Reserves, and then to their left is the 10th. It's that one that's on. I forget
bronze,
what that. It's all bronze. It's solid bronze.
Yeah,
It's a
guys like
beautiful,
dragging his
beautiful
rifle.
statue.
Yeah, very nice.
And then the 5th and 12th are up on top of Big Round Top where nobody sees them.
Nobody sees them. Nobody goes up there.
I've been up there once, and that's the last time I want to do that.
You better go before you can't get up there anymore.
I know. I should.
I think it's the 5th Reserves one that I'm thinking of. That's it's almost got like garland wrapped around.
Right.
Yes.
It's so cool.
It is.
But it's way the hell up there.
That's right. There's no reason to go up. There's no tower to climb anymore.
No. No, if they put the tower back, I'll go up.
You will go up?
Yeah. So there you go, Park Service. Put the tower back, and my health will
tower down
improve.
because the vultures were using it more than the visitors.
Well, didn't the trees start to grow taller than the tower or something like that?
I don't know if that was more the one at on Oak Ridge.
Oh,
Yeah,
so they cut the tower down.
Well, it was rusting, they said, too, so they cut it down. So now the trees are much bigger than the tower.
Yes.
Which makes all the
Way
sense
bigger.
in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll tell you, the trees at Culp's Hill that they left standing there, they're getting pretty tall, too. I mean, it's sometimes a little tough to see over there.
Yeah, they are.
Tower.
They are. I noticed that last year. Yeah. All right. So then, does that end it for Gettysburg for the reserves?
No,
How about the rest of the campaign?
Well, no,
That doesn't even end it for the second.
We haven't talked about the attack that they were going to make on the to the left.
Well, then let's do this.
Yeah.
What is this
Well,
about?
I'll just set it up, and then Eric can fill in the detail. But the point is, when they go across the field, they're going to start taking fire from essentially their left flank, which is Devil's Den. Yeah.
You talking McCandless?
Yeah, McCandless. We'll talk about them as they go down. So he has two regiments in reserve. Was the 31st and the 13th?
It's the
second and the 13th.
Yeah. And so they're going to go to the left. Mm-hmm. They're going to extend the line to clear out more of the Rose Woods there by the wheat field. And, of course, that's where they get into the skirmishing with the Confederates who are pushing them from Devil's Den.
Because Benning is still on Devil's Den.
Yes.
He doesn't. He's just holding Devil's Den.
And
they're like firing annoyingly.
Well, they were advancing into the wheat field fight eventually. I mean, once they clear the field. And I have the story about the one Texas guy kept running in front of the Georgia flag carrier. And Georgia flag carrier run in front of him. And then they finally grab these guys and say, stay here. Don't go any further. Because they're like, leaving. We're going to be ahead of you. We're going to be ahead of you type of thing. And so that's what's going on. It's under those circumstances that Charles Taylor, who's commanding the 13th, is killed.
Yeah.
Okay, he's out there, and he comes up, and supposedly the men are there. A couple sergeants, I forget their names. I used to know them, but they were there, and they told him Confederates are over there. And he says, "No, that's not Confederates." And then he realized they're Confederates. By the time he realized that, they shoot him.
Yeah.
And he's the youngest commander of an infantry unit in the Union Army to be killed at Gettysburg. What is he?
23 years old.
Yeah, he has it right down to the day on the monument.
He's a full colonel at 23 years old.
Charles
he's the
Taylor.
youngest colonel in the Federal Army at that point.
That's right.
Right, not a brevet, like an actual colonel.
He's got real. He's got real leaves.
Got a real.
not tinsel.
I'm a wheel colonel.
That's right.
Okay, so then, so continue. Go ahead.
Well, that pretty much ends the affair then, as they fall back to the stone wall, which is still there, and that's where they are the next day. Now there's a third day, and they're going to be involved in some of one of the most amazing stories on the third day.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff that comes out of that.
That's right.
What's the one?
The one that I do want to touch on for the second day. Actually,
go
there's
ahead.
two.
Yeah.
As they're moving down the north slope of Little Round, or the western slope of Little Round Top, and they're crossing Plum Run. Nevins's brigade of the 6th Corps is to their right rear, right? The Weichert farm, the John or Joseph Weichert farm,
John.
is right there on their right flank,
Yeah.
and the 6th Reserves, who are on the right, they're receiving fire from the log house that was there initially. The yellow farmhouse that's there now is a replacement. I think that was built in the late 1870s.
Yeah.
And so a Sergeant George Mears from Company A of the 6th Reserves grabs up 5 other guys, and they bum rush this log house. And they capture, they say, like around a dozen Confederates out of there, including what they say is a young sergeant, a young-looking sergeant. And they pull them out of the house, and they run them back over to their regimental line, which is still moving forward. Mm-hmm. And for that action, all 6 of those men end up receiving the Medal of Honor.
That's right.
The other story I want to talk about from the second is kind of friendly fire deal, right? So after they've moved up to the stone wall and they've halted, I think it's Gibbs's battery. I can't say with absolute certainty, but it's whoever was occupying Munshauer's Knoll at the time, which I think has to be Gibbs.
Gibbs is, according to the map, it's Gibbs.
Yeah. They are
Gibbs.
firing at Devil's Den. They screw up the range, and they drop a round right into the 13th Reserves. They kill 2 guys outright. One of them's from Company B. He's a kid named Samuel Spears. And he jumps up, and he's had his arm taken off. And he's running in a circle, just spurting blood, yelling, "I won't die, I won't die." And then he drops stone dead. But 7 guys are wounded from that, including one of the lieutenants.
So that was from friendly fire.
Yeah, so it's 7 wounded and 1 killed, or 2 killed from that one round of friendly fire. That's all I want to talk about on the second. The third is super interesting.
Well,
It sure is.
before we get to that, for the sake of our YouTube viewers, Eric, when you're talking, why don't you just put it on all 3 cameras and then come over and sit here in the guest chair?
Okay.
And just leave it there, unless you have other visuals that you want to
Yeah, I
switch
got like
to.
pictures.
All right, then put it on all 3
that'll be
cameras
for, like,
anyway,
the
because this one
questions.
points at you anyway, so
Alrighty.
it doesn't matter. Because it's very annoying for the listener or the viewer to hear a voice for a few minutes that they can't see the face of, and then they're just looking at me and Charlie with
which is
I don't know what to do with my hands now.
just talk with them. Take a cue from Gary. Yeah, just do whatever.
I
All
don't
right.
have that much energy.
No, I know. All right. So, what's the story? And this may be one of the ones that you're thinking of. What's the story with the horse?
Oh, that's the morning of the third too. You know
Yeah.
this one?
All right. So let's move into the third. Tell that story.
Yeah.
You want me to do it?
Yeah,
or you
you
want
do
it?
it. You do it.
Damn it.
Yeah. He liked the horse. He likes horses.
Yeah. So a couple of guys from the 6th Reserves on the morning of the 3rd, they move forward to their lines and they find this horse tied up in the woods, which is essentially like on the north side of the Wheatfield Road, adjacent to the Wheatfield. And they bring it back, and I forget the guy's name. He's from Company I. He decides that he wants to goof around. So he mounts this horse bareback, and he starts riding up and down the brigade line. They say doing his best impersonation of Bucky McCandless, who was the brigade commander. It was Buck McCandless.
Yeah.
And exhorting guys to remember their mammies and pappies and to do the best that they could for God and country or something like that. And at one point, the horse rears and throws him, like right in front of the reserve. And they burst out laughing. The whole brigade, everybody who sees it bursts out laughing. But the Confederates on the opposite side of the wheat field have seen this happen too. And allegedly they're laughing as well. It's an interesting story. I think I put it up on the Facebook page a couple of times.
I think that's the first time I read it.
It's a weird one. I was thumbing through the regimental history of the 6th Reserves one time, and I came across that. What the hell is this?
But it's one. I love that story because it's, you're in the middle of this horror show.
Yes.
You just went through this fight. There's got to be, obviously dead all over the place, mangled bodies everywhere, and yet you still have to make jokes.
And the 2nd Reserves.
That's what I love about
very different
soldiers.
Story. The 2nd Reserves are on the kind of the opposite end of the line from the 6th, and they talk about. They're talking about dealing with sharpshooters in the morning.
Oh, that's another one. Yes.
And so I'll read it verbatim.
Do it. Do it, Eric. Do it.
This was written
also
by,
read it word for word.
Yeah, indeed. I'll try not to do it in Latin. At daybreak on the 3rd, the enemy's line of skirmishers in our brigade front being reinforced, they opened with great spirit, the noise of the musketry almost resembling that of a regular battle. Our own line was promptly reinforced by volunteers who freely responded to them, but soon after the fire on both sides slackened and settled down to the commonplace picket fighting. This work was kept up until about 5 p.m., during which time we were much annoyed by the sharpshooters posted in the trees, and a number of men of the other regiments were killed and wounded by them. This kind of fighting gave excellent opportunities for the display of individual bravery and address, and the maneuvering of the boys to get good shots at times created considerable amusement. Some amusement. When some enterprising Confederate was well posted and annoyed us much, 2 or 3 would arrange their plans to knock him over, and creeping up cautiously from different directions, one of the men would draw his fire, while another on his flank would shoot him. One scamp got up a tree and succeeded in killing several men when his locality was discovered. 2 of the boys started after him and got under the tree before he saw them. He immediately cried out he would come down, to which they replied they knew that very well, and they rattled him through the branches a few moments afterward. Another individual whom they afterwards discovered doing an extensive business in the same style, they left hanging in the crotches of a tree with his head and feet towards the ground. The boys never showed any mercy to these tree frogs.
Tree frogs.
That's the adjutant of the 2nd Reserves.
Oh my gosh!
In his history. So it's 2 very different perspectives on what's happening that day. One's all about some guy riding like an idiot up and down the brigade line, getting thrown from his horse, and the other one's, hey, we kind of had fun creeping up under trees and shooting people out of them.
Right.
Like, wow, okay.
Yeah, but if you look at the maps, I think you'll find that the reserves are kind of in advance.
Yeah.
There's nobody on their left, for example. So Devil's Den is controlled by the Confederates. So the left side of the brigade, the left side of the line would be the most dangerous to be in, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the 3rd, besides comedy and stalking and killing people,
what else is there?
Whoa, that's a good point. Does the reserves do anything else?
Sure.
Oh,
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, well,
let's say Charlie in there. He's the guest. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, they made an attack in Devil's Den. And that the Devil's Den was held by the 15th Georgia. It's part of Benning's brigade. Okay, and they were, like Eric said, they're being annoyed by these people. And what was it? Was it the 35th?
It was the 13th Reserves.
The 13th,
tried,
yeah. And they actually charged.
Yeah.
Down. If you've ever been there, where the U.S. Regulars monuments are.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's a swell, a valley, and then you go up to Devil's Den.
Right.
And they talk about charging down this valley.
Yeah.
And up into the rocks of Devil's Den.
So basically, from just to give people an idea, if you've been here, where the regulars tablets are, face south.
Yeah.
That's the valley you're talking about.
Yes.
Face south, run down that valley, and then up to the top of Devil's Den by where the 99th PA
It's not
is.
easy. I tried it one time. It's not easy. And they ran up there, and they said they ran like hounds down and yelling
Barking.
like devils.
Okay.
And of course, when they hit the 15th Georgia, they broke through the line and they said they routed not only 15th Georgia but brigades, and after brigade they're rolling them up.
Well, the 13th Reserve tried like 2 or 3 times in the morning.
Yes.
To clear out Devil's Den, and they couldn't do it because there were just too many guys there.
Right.
But then in the afternoon, after Pickett's charge and after Farnsworth's charge, and when they basically sweep Rose's Woods, they finally take the 15th Georgia, pretty much the whole regiment.
Right.
They captured
they got
the
their
colors.
flags.
Yeah.
They got their flag.
Yeah, James Thompson, Company G of the 13th Reserve, got a Medal of Honor for capturing the colors of the 15th Georgia.
Now, part of the reason, like Eric was saying, in the morning they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
There's too many Confederates. But by this time, Lee's ordering them to fall back, throw it in their lines. And so the 15th was kind of like a rear guard.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so when they hit the 15th, I mean, one regiment, but then all these other guys are running anyway, so why not run faster when you see guys chasing you?
Sure.
You know, I mean, so it's almost like
it's almost like it's very much an unfair fight. It's the 13th, 1st, and the 13th, 1st, 2nd, and 11th Reserves, and the 62nd New York from Nevin's Brigade.
Right. Yeah.
Against the 15th Georgia, or what's left of it from the day before.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a fair fight at all.
And they were expected to be called to retreat anyway, eventually.
So they figured they'd take it upon themselves to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, so that's, it was a glorious moment for the reserves.
Sure.
Yeah, you
sounds
took
like
the charge into the Valley of Death on the 2nd, and this charge, these were highly successful offenses for the Union Army.
Right.
In the fighting, although not on the scale maybe as Pickett's charge, certainly, but I mean, they were very successful and contributed, at least on the second day, they contributed to eventual Union victory.
Mm-hmm. How does the day end for them?
Darkness. All was darkness.
I walked right into that.
I know you said, thank you.
Stupid.
Well, they actually did it. They actually did advance. They were supposed to clear the Rose Woods.
Right.
Okay, so they moved forward eventually to clear the Rose Woods. And there was some artillery, I guess, on the Stony Hill. There's a section of battery up there.
I always thought that those were 2 of the guns from Bigelow's battery that had been captured the day before.
Yeah, and they were firing. So they said they fired on them, and the firing of the guns became what was the word they used? Less effective.
Yeah.
In other words, the gunners weren't working the guns because they're being shot. Okay.
Either.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. And so that's another thing they did was they actually cleared the wheat field eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they move through, clear the wheat field.
Right. Eventually, I guess they'll move up and on to the Emmitsburg Road as the Confederates fall back. Because remember, the next day, the 6th Corps comes out and they march right up into the wheat field or the peach orchard. There's nobody there.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's enough for now, right?
Okay,
I think, right? We've got everything up to the end of the Battle of Gettysburg.
Yeah.
We can do something about, the retreat later or something.
Okay.
But I think we got it all right, Eric. Eric, what other things do you like? Because I like when you've really come alive today on this one. And you
this is his baby.
I know. I like it when Eric's interested.
I like.
We like to keep him interested.
Yeah, we're just going to talk. This is going to be called addressing the PA reserves, and that we're only going to talk about them from now on.
Okay.
I like a nice braised piece of pork.
Addressing pork.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Pork is the king of meats.
It really is. Pork is fantastic. People really don't give it the credit it's due. They always stop at bacon, but pork is so versatile.
Oh my God, yeah.
Especially the carnitas that you make.
God, yeah.
Fantastic. All right, well, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a commercial break, and then we're going to come back and ask Charlie and Eric, too, the questions that our patrons have sent in. You have to be a patron in order to send a question in for Ask a Gettysburg Guide. And being a patron, hey, it keeps this going. And I think in this time of uncertainty, we need addressing Gettysburg. So please become a patron and help the world. I mean, I'm being honest. Help the world. We'll be right back. The season is finally here. 2021 is going to be a great year, and we know that you're going to come down to Gettysburg. And when you do come down to Gettysburg, you got to take a tour with Getty's Bike Tours. Getty's Bike Tours has been in business since 2005. It is the best way to see the battlefield. Why? Because you don't just see the battlefield, you experience the battlefield. Our tours are led by some of the finest licensed battlefield guides out there, and they make sure that you walk away with a full understanding of what happened here on those 3 days in 1863. Here's the best part. Because you're an Addressing Gettysburg listener, you're going to get 15% off when you make your reservation. Now, this discount only applies to tours, so go to gettysbike.com or call 717-752-7752 and book a tour today. There's no better way to see the town you're visiting than to eat your way through it. And there's no better way to eat your way through this town than with Savor Gettysburg food tours. Enjoy a culinary and cultural experience through historic downtown Gettysburg, one delicious bite at a time. Their season runs from April through November with the special Christmas Tastes and Traditions walking food tour during the month of December. So go to SavorGettysburgFoodTours.com and enter promo code AG2021 to receive $5 off your tour. Eat, walk, get a taste of history with Savor Gettysburg. Have you noticed our revamped website at addressinggettysburg.com? Well, that's the fine work of a man named Mike Stretch, and he also redid our logo for us. Both of them I originally designed, and both of them were originally horrible, but now they're nice, and that's all thanks to Mike. Mike has an awesome t-shirt company called Heritage Depot. There you'll find great designs based on Gettysburg and the Civil War with t-shirts and other types of merchandise. So go to heritage-depot.com and spruce up your Getty's Nerd wardrobe. That's heritage-depot.com. Our favorite bookstore in Gettysburg is For the Historian, located at 42 York Street. It's because they have the best selection of Civil War books in Gettysburg, both new and used. And online, they have even more to choose from. And if the Civil War isn't your thing, that's not a problem. This is For the Historian, after all. They cover history from the ancient world to the 21st century with a strong selection of World War II and American Revolution books. It's astounding how many thousands of titles from Osprey, Savas Beatty, UNC Press, and more they have in their store. And that's because, well, they have a warehouse too. And that's where they keep all the books that are available online at forthehistorian.com. And folks, if you go to forthehistorian.com now and order books until you're blue in the face, be sure you mention that you heard about them on Addressing Gettysburg in the Note to Seller box, and they will refund your shipping costs. And if you prefer to stop by when you're in town, well, you could do that too. Just mention Addressing Gettysburg at checkout, and they'll take 20% off the retail price of your item. So go to forthehistorian.com or stop by 42 York Street, or you can call them at 717-685-5207. That's forthehistorian.com or 717-685-5207. Gettysburg, A Nation Divided mobile app is relaunching this summer. Gettysburg, A Nation Divided is an award-winning mixed reality mobile application using augmented reality technology. It transports users into the most crucial moments in the Battle of Gettysburg, the turning point of the Civil War. Users can listen and watch historic figures share their stories as lifelike animated avatars, traverse 360-degree image sequences of the battlefield. Its cinematic battle sequences are narrated by actor Scott Eastwood. The mobile app is available for free on iOS and Android. It's designed to be used anywhere, at home, at school, at the park, or at Gettysburg National Military Park. It uses GPS to help guide you through your journey to see the stories and events unfold at the exact location where they occurred. So go into your phone's app store and get it now for free. That's Gettysburg, A Nation Divided. All right, we're back with our questions for Charlie and Eric today about the Pennsylvania Reserves. Of course, these are, again, I keep reminding you that they are submitted by our patrons over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. First one we're going to go with here is from Chuck Critchfield, and he says, can Charlie explain the confusion over the regimental numbers? Well, Charlie, can you explain that?
To some degree. I mean, they have two numbers at least.
Right.
Now, of course, when you're mustered into the Federal Service, you get a number. Mm-hmm. And it's like the meat market. You get the next number available.
Right.
Okay, And so they had 29 regiments from Pennsylvania already mustered into the Federal Service.
Right.
So when the reserves come in, let's say you're in the first reserves. Well, you were first reserves when you're in the state service. Now you go in the Federal Service. And so now you get number 30.
Okay.
Because that's the next number available for Pennsylvania.
All right.
Okay, so then you become what you have to do is add 29
yeah.
to the reserve number.
Okay.
And that gives you the federal number.
Now, I guess so. Maybe the confusion he's talking about is that the men in the regiment would refer to themselves as what their original number was because there's more pride with that.
Not only that, but it's a lower number.
Yeah.
So that means you're earlier in the war.
You're earlier, yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
early in the war. We just talked about
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
they're 1861 units.
Right,
so.
May, yeah.
Yeah, so I think most of the reserves would refer to themselves as the reserve number.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the federal Army, I mean, if Meade's addressing the reserves, he might use their reserve number because he was one of them.
Sure.
But, if McClellan's addressing them, he's going to call them the
30th
35th.
or
The 30th rather than.
So-
now, the real confusion is with the 42nd.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, the 13th, Kane rifles, the 1st PA rifle.
Oh, yes.
Pick
over on
pick a name.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Over
that-
on Culp's Hill, right?
Well, no, they're over.
Oh, they're
that's the
here.
That's the 13th with Charles Taylor and those guys.
Who am I thinking of on
Kane.
Culp's Hill?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I can't think of anybody.
Did anything happen there?
Wait, what was
First Maryland CSA?
No. What was Crapsey in?
The 13th Reserve.
Oh, it was. Oh,
Also,
okay.
the 42nd Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
also
the
the
Cade's
King's
Rifles.
Rifle
Yeah,
Pennsylvania
right.
Reserve Corps.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's where the confusion comes. Just add 29 to the reserve number.
Okay. Very
And
good.
if you look at the Pennsylvania Monument, they have both of them on there.
But it gets really interesting because the 14th Reserves are the 1st Pennsylvania Artillery.
Oh, that's right.
The 15th Reserves are the 1st Pennsylvania
Cavalry.
Cavalry. Pennsylvania is interesting because they have this system of line designations, right? That it's kind of a carryover from the Revolution, where you had a designation within the Pennsylvania line, and it was immaterial if you were, just infantry or dragoons or artillery. And so they keep that.
So in other words, hold on, let's break this down for newbies. So when you say is your designation in the line, so if there's 14 infantry regiments, the 15th regiment is cavalry, let's say. So then you're the 15th Pennsylvania Cavalry?
You're the 15th. So it's the 1st Pennsylvania Cavalry because
Okay.
they are the 1st Cavalry
Okay.
Regiment from Pennsylvania.
Right.
They're also the 15th Reserves because they are the 15th Regiment organized in the reserve.
So it doesn't matter.
But they're also the 44th Pennsylvania because they have that Pennsylvania line designation as well.
In the U.S. service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Gotcha.
That's
Gotcha. Okay.
It's convoluted, but that's the way it was.
All right. Mark Miller, he says, did having the U.S. regulars as an element of the 5th Corps influence training or expectations of fellow divisions or brigades? So I think he's assuming, and Mark, forgive me if I'm misrepresenting you here, but it seems to me that he's assuming that the regulars would have been the better soldiers. And so the regulars being in there with them would that either influence the way they were trained, or maybe just the cream rises to the top, or what's that saying where you're around people who are better than you, then you're going to either rise up to their level. I think that's the assumption he's making there. But who did the reserves go in after, or did
The regulars.
The regulars,
Yeah, right.
right? And what happened to the regulars?
Well, they got shot up.
Right. So,
It doesn't matter if you're
but it doesn't
regular.
mean that the regulars sucked, though.
No, I mean what I'm saying.
They just in a
I
bad
think what
spot.
it means is if they set an example of high standard.
Right.
That's if you're training with them.
Right, but they
Maybe
weren't.
They weren't. They trained by regiment, by brigade, and they're not brigaded with the regulars.
And
the regulars,
Yeah.
okay, a lot of them were, I mean, when the war starts, these men have had experience in drill.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so they would tend to have better fire discipline, better march discipline. Doesn't mean they're better soldiers. It just means they're better or ready for the war when it starts. They also got to understand that being in the regular army, you acquire bad habits that you wouldn't have when you're first coming in. So they had some bad habits you don't want to pass on to reserve you.
Right.
So I don't think it affected their training at all. I think they got the standard training that everybody else did.
Okay.
No, and in truth, the reserves are only a part of the 5th Corps for about 2 months.
Right.
Prior to the Gettysburg
So they were,
campaign.
right. So they weren't there.
They're not really in contact with the regulars, except on the peninsula.
Right.
That's
the
about
only
it.
place. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Chris Quinn, he says, I have an ancestor who fought in the 11th PA Reserves at Gettysburg. In the book 3 Years in the Bloody 11th, it talks about their charge at Plum Run. In the book, it basically says that they initiated the charge and then were praised by Crawford. As much as I would like to believe my ancestor's regiment started the charge, do we know who actually started it? P.S. Shout out to Gettysburg Tours for taking us around the battlefield to follow in our ancestors' footsteps. Well, great, Chris. I thank you for that. Gettysburg.com. Okay. 717-752-7752. Okay, go ahead, Charlie.
Well, Crawford's the one's going to order the charge. He's the center of the regiment, so chances are they would take the lead going down. But I always thought the line kind of advanced together. I don't think any one regiment got too far ahead of the rest. Chances are they might have got to the Confederate line sooner than the other two for one reason or another. Mm-hmm. Okay, but we definitely know that it was one of those units that stepped off first, and Crawford supposedly was leading the charge carrying the flag of the 1st Pennsylvania Reserves, wasn't he?
Yeah,
He had the flag of the
Reserve, yeah.
And so I would assume that since he has that flag, that regiment would probably start and the rest would follow in, since the 40th was in the center of the line.
Okay, good point. Yeah. All right. Tim Dolan, he says, are there any writings from the PA Reserves indicating that General Reynolds' death on day 1 may have been a motivation on day 2? I know several PA Reserve members acted as pallbearers at Reynolds' funeral and was wondering if they had any special relationship with their former commander, even if not directly under his command anymore.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how much they knew at that point about his death. I'm sure it was circulating through the Army. Certainly he was a very beloved commander, very well known among the Army of the Potomac, especially among the command structure. And I would assume that if they served under him, they would have some, remorse at his passing. I don't know how much that would motivate them to, revenge, so to speak. I don't think that would be necessarily a factor motivating their performance. I think what was really motivating them was they're in Pennsylvania. I think that more than anything is going to motivate them. What do you think, Eric?
I haven't personally come across really any writings that say that they knew on July 2nd.
Right.
As a matter of fact, they had the 2nd Reserves talk about this in their regimental history. They had actually brought a presentation sword with them for Reynolds that they had not had a chance to give him yet because he was their original brigade commander. And they find out at some point during the course of the battle, they don't say when specifically, that they find out he's been killed. And so a sergeant from the 5th Reserves is detailed to take the sword to Philadelphia and present it to his sister instead. And I've tried to find photos of it, but I cannot find anything. I don't know what happened to it, where it is now, but I have not found any photos on the internet of this presentation sword. And by all accounts, it's like incredibly ornate.
It's probably in somebody's attic somewhere.
Yeah, there's
Can you imagine?
there's diamonds involved, all kinds of stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Where the hell? Okay, whatever.
We should go look.
Yeah. All right. Now, it wouldn't be a show, an Ask a Guide, without a large contribution from our buddy 6 Questions Lentz. Although tonight he only submitted 4. So I'm saving the best for last, of course. Mikey Lentz there. So here we go. Let's start with this here. Why were the 2 brigades of the PA Reserves assigned to the 5th Corps for the Gettysburg campaign?
Well, they had served with them earlier in the war, most recently with the 5th Corps. And, the 5th Corps was kind of in the vicinity when they were marching north. So if you're going to catch up to somebody, catch up to the 5th Corps. And I think they wanted to strengthen the 5th Corps. The 5th Corps had some units that had mustered out after Chancellorsville.
Okay.
So you want to get those numbers up a little bit. So I think that's one of the main reasons why they would be assigned.
Because they needed them.
Yeah.
They needed them. That's right.
Well, the 5th Corps is down to 2 divisions.
That's right. It is. Yeah.
Reynolds and Meade had both at the beginning of the campaign requested specifically that the reserves be assigned to them.
Right.
And it wasn't until after they had started petitioning the War Department to be released from the defenses of Washington to go defend their state that they're actually assigned to the 5th Corps.
Eric, what if the Pennsylvania Reserves had gone to the 1st Corps?
I don't know.
People love what ifs.
The first day may have changed. I don't know.
I don't know. Then they put Standards Brigade in the 5th Corps. Because they're trying to balance the corps.
Somebody would have gone to the 5th Corps.
Yeah, because they were down in numbers. So that's probably why the main reason, like Eric said, that they were assigned.
Meade had been the most recent division commander before Crawford.
Right, and Meade wasn't commander of the Army yet.
No,
so
he wasn't. When they were assigned to the 5th Corps, he was still in command of the 5th Corps.
That's right.
Okay, who was Charles Taylor?
Charles Taylor was the colonel of the 13th Pennsylvania Reserves, the Bucktails.
And why did the members of his regiment choose to memorialize him on the battlefield?
Well, you say he was a good commander. He was young, enthusiastic. He took care of his men. So he's popular with the men there, and that's one of the main reasons why they wanted to remember him.
And for people that might want to go find that, where could that be found?
Oh, it's very difficult. You have to go on Ayers Avenue, which is off the Wheatfield Road.
Okay.
Okay, come down the Wheatfield Road, and the first possible turn you can make, because the first one's a one-way to wrong way.
Yeah.
Ayers Avenue.
Right.
Okay, you drive through there, you circle around 148th Pennsylvania, big monument with the shamrock on, and then as you come to the next curve, he's on your left.
It's just right off the side of the road.
It's right off the side of the road.
And it's low to the ground, right?
It's a little bigger than the flank marker.
Yeah.
So it's a decent size.
Oh, Eric's going to put a picture of it there. All right, very good, Eric.
Go.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Go look for that.
That's your homework assignment.
It's
in the woods. Go find it.
Woods, yeah.
It's after
Take a friend.
If you're on Ayers Avenue, it's the first bend, and it's right there on your left, isn't that right?
Yes, that's right.
And then before you go up onto the top of Houck's Ridge, where the U.S. Regulars monuments
are. You get
are.
the U.S. Regulars, you missed it.
You've missed it.
Yes.
Go back.
That's
but
correct.
you can't go back because it's one way. So get out of the car and walk.
It's not that far from there.
Okay. What land did Samuel Crawford own at Gettysburg? We kind of talked about this here.
Did.
We went into. let's see what else.
Actually, have the map here if you want to see it.
Yeah, go play that again, and then in the meantime, I'm just going to go because this question number 3 is a 37-part question from Mike Lenz.
Let me explain this real quick.
Okay,
as you
go
guys
ahead,
are
Eric.
looking at this map, you see there's like a big patch of red down towards the bottom of it, with like this wide swath of dark gray. It almost looks like that dark gray is the land that Crawford owned. And that's the northeastern border is going to be the Wheatfield Road, and it essentially runs along the top of Houck's Ridge south to the Devil's Den, just so you guys have some reference.
Why does he have a statue at Gettysburg, and more specifically, who was responsible for placing this statue?
Crawford?
Yes, Crawford, sorry.
Well, Crawford was he was supposed to get a statue when Pennsylvania allocated money for their commanders. Okay, and of course, I think they didn't realize how expensive the Pennsylvania State Memorial was going to be. and so they ran out of money. The two that didn't get their monuments that they were supposed to have were Crawford and Gibbon. Okay, they were supposed to be put up because they commanded Pennsylvania troops, that sort of thing there. And Crawford, of course, is from Chambersburg, so he's a Pennsylvania native.
Local boy.
Yeah, and so they selected the site for those two monuments. Since they can't put them on the Pennsylvania monument like they did some of the other generals, they put them where they fought. Okay, so they both were dedicated in 1988.
Yes, those are very recent.
125th anniversary.
Yeah. I was 10 years old.
That was Matt Sheeds' granddad was heavily involved with
I
that.
believe that. Yes, that's right.
That's right. Colonel Sheeds. Yeah,
Colonel Sheeds.
He was pushing for him for years.
We have the book of minutes for all the meetings for that right there, as a matter of fact.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Matt gave us some cool stuff from the Colonel's collection.
Oh, yeah, quite a collection.
My favorite is I have he gave me a, no, he didn't give it to me. He let me borrow it. It's like a little pocket notebook that the Colonel used to carry around, and it's all stats on the A and V. Yeah. And so it's in pretty bad shape. So I went and copied it in a small notebook myself.
Sure.
Like verbatim, and I structured it the way he had it structured and everything like that. That's my favorite. That and a photo album that he went around and took pictures of. Not every monument, but quite a bit of them. But they're all in black and white.
Yeah, sure.
And it had to be in the 50s that he took this picture.
Probably right after World War II.
Pennsylvania ones, yeah.
Yes.
Well, the old guides used to always carry a notebook.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have notebooks. The park didn't have them yet. They didn't put out. Well, I got 3 notebooks from the park in my bag over here.
Oh, really? I didn't. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Then we used to make your own.
You make your own.
Yeah, and you put in things that people would ask.
Okay.
Like casualties.
Yeah.
I carried in mind, where certain, especially Pennsylvania, like were the counties.
Where everybody was from and stuff.
And,
what is it? Do you have it in your bag right now?
No, I don't carry it anymore because I got the stuff from the park.
No, that's what I mean. The ones at the park. Do you have it in your bag now? Can I see what it looks like?
Yeah.
Is it like top secret? I'm not allowed to look at it unless I'm a licensed guide.
Yeah. It's very secret. It's so secret
It's so secret you can't find it.
Yeah, let me look. Here we go.
Okay, so let's see.
Okay, so
I had no idea they did that.
Here's the one they did by the numbers. That's Teague's.
Oh, I have that one. Yeah.
So here's
another one.
This is
I have 2 copies of that
too. This is the one the guides put out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I've seen this before.
There's another one.
Now, can anybody get this, or is this?
Yeah, you can buy that in the visitor center.
You can. Okay.
Yeah.
This I got to get this one.
Now this is the one they put out. You can't buy. Secret.
Oh, that's secret. It doesn't even have writing on it.
Yeah, but it's so secret you can't read it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it has the monuments where they are, dedication.
Look at how small that is.
Yeah, it's small. Because you have
see
to
that.
put it,
Can I see it?
Well, you can't see it because it's too small. You have to put it here. See, it fits right in your pocket.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a pocket guide. That one there.
It's a little too big for your pocket.
I don't know if I can get it in my pocket or not.
Let's try it.
Yeah, let me try it.
No, I don't think you can.
I'm going to clear out my pocket.
I mean, you're going to rip your pocket eventually or ruin the
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
I got it in, but now I can't get it out.
It's like a pocket protector.
Oh, this is ridiculous. You need a magnifying glass for this.
You do.
Who the hell can read this?
Now, I'll tell you what I put in mine initially. Prof. Fiddler made a map of all the monuments on the field.
Yes. I have that.
Yeah, okay. So he made. Probably you got the updated version, that was published.
Yeah, I mean it was from I don't know. I bought it at the visitor center.
Yeah. That's not Prof. Fiddler's.
Oh, that's not the one.
No, you got to come in the guide room. We'll show it to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he did it, and so I didn't know where the monuments were when I became a guide. And so I copied his map in my first book, and then I thought, well, I can't hardly read it because all these monuments. I'll put the Confederates in red and the Union in blue and the information tablets in black. Mm-hmm. So I had like 10 pages of this map that I did by hand.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I used to copy maps too. I liked it.
And then that way, if somebody wanted to know where the monument was, I can kind of look on the map. Oh, here it is. And now they published the map, and you can buy it in the visitor center.
This is really tiny writing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it'll translate on the camera here.
Probably
Can I show this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
No, it's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, because a lot of the information in there is in here now.
You can see it on the camera?
Oh, let me look.
Eric's on
Sorry,
it.
I was looking at notes.
He's looking at dirty pictures.
Hang on, let me get yours only because I can't read that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, you can't read it there either.
It's tiny.
Would you look at that?
Yeah, and it has nothing on the cover. So it's like a top secret.
It is. It's a document. But, if you get the monuments, markers, tablets, a location guide, a lot of the stuff in this one is in this one.
Yeah, this one here.
And
this is
more
available.
Readable. It's
more readable.
Yeah.
It is available in the visitor center. Slightly larger print.
Yeah, and we also have all the states' regiments by county.
Yeah.
In there. So if you're in the 13th Pennsylvania Reserves and you want to know if your county was in that regiment.
I just want to see Chuck's book.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
And this one, this is a good one. I love this one.
Chuck T's
I have
book,
2 copies of it, one for my car and one for home.
Yeah, I have one laminated. I used to carry that in my pocket too.
Oh, well,
My
rain.
shirts are all bent out of shape. But
here's something, and I know we're kind of straying here, but this is my favorite page 21, and I noticed yours was marked.
Yes.
Is it your favorite page too?
It
because
is
of
now.
Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, there's an estimated 67,000 horses and mules that were used in immediate support of the armies, plus another 20,000 mules in distant supply trains. Approximately 5,000 to 7,000 horses and mules were killed, either from wounds or being hard ridden. Jeb Stuart lost nearly 2,000 horses en route. The daily requirement for a horse, 12 to 14 pounds of grain for nutrition, 12 to 14 pounds of fodder, grass or hay, for proper digestion, 10 gallons of water.
Right.
Daily requirement for a mule, 9 pounds of grain, 12 of fodder, 10 gallons of water. Thus, each day, the two armies had a requirement for over 1 million pounds of grain, plus 1 million pounds of fodder, and over 800,000 gallons of water.
That's one day.
That's one day.
Yeah.
Each animal produced 10 to 15 pounds of manure and 2 gallons of urine. Each day there was 1 million plus pounds of manure and 150,000 plus gallons of urine.
That's why the grass is green here.
Even during a drought, it's very green.
Yeah.
But and I always I don't mean to sound like a child because I do often go back to things like, poop and pee, but it's a very important thing because it's everywhere. It's logistics.
Yeah, it's
logistics, it's sanitation, it's everything. All right. All right, Charlie wants to go to bed, so let's move on here.
I'm already sleeping.
Still on the Crawford story though, and then this is a good story, so I want you to tell it. Mike says, given the flag story, why is his statue not on horseback with a soldier desperately holding onto his pant leg?
I asked the artist that.
Yes.
And he told me, he says, you got an extra $200,000?
Oh.
And I said, no.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It makes it always comes down to money.
Yeah, and
logistics.
And I thought that would be the best monument on the field.
It would.
People would come from all over to see it.
Well, so now what do you think, was it 1988 that was?
Yeah, it was 1988.
So what do you think 200,000 is worth today?
A dog.
All right.
I don't know. I mean, it probably went up.
Listen.
The price of everything's gone up since then, right?
We have a very large audience with a very wide reach, and I'm sure someone has the 2021 equivalent of $200,000.
Yeah, there you go.
Extra $500,000 laying around, so that maybe we can. I don't know. Would the park let us put the statue on a horse?
It would be interesting to find out.
It would. Okay. Tell the flag story for people that don't know it, though. Mike's in the know, but other people aren't.
Well,
so tell the flag story.
When he wants to get his line to move, he goes over to the 1st Pennsylvania Reserves, 30th Pennsylvania,
on horseback.
Yeah, and he kind of demanded the flag, and the flag carrier refused to give it to him. And he said, do you know who I am? He said, I don't care who you are. This flag's my responsibility.
Good man.
And so Crawford allegedly grabbed the flag and spurred his horse, jerking up. Was it Schott? Corporal Schott? I think it was. Do you know the name? I thought it was Corporal Schott.
I used to know the name.
C-H-O-T-T. Well, I know he was one of the flag bearers. So it might not be the one that he grabbed. But anyway, he pulled it out of his hand, and Schott grabs his leg and a saddle strap. And so as the charge is going across the field, Crawford's pulling this guy along,
dragging this kid
with the charge, and when they get to the stone wall, and the charge essentially ends, then he gives the flag back and commends him on his dedication to duty.
Oh, that's
hey.
nice.
At least he didn't have to run.
Yeah. I never thought of that. Maybe that was his motivation, Eric.
I bet the regiment had a hard time keeping up with him.
Yeah, I would have.
You
can just imagine what the Confederates thought.
Yeah. These crazy Yankees.
Jeez. But that was one of the great stories of the charge of the reserves. And the flag has 35 holes in it.
In the statue? Or?
Yeah, in the statue.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
no.
35 states in the Union.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I asked the 5th grader why there's 35 holes in the flag. You know what he told me?
Why?
It was shot 35 times.
That's the obvious answer.
I hate 5th graders.
All right. Finally, the last question. How did the 13th Reserves feel about Roy Stone and his regiments? What is the origin of the Bogus Bucktail label?
Well, I think the 13th Pennsylvania gave it to him. Is that right, Eric?
They did.
They did.
So what ended up happening was, like I said earlier, right after the 7 days, Roy Stone and Langhorne Worcester from the 13th Reserves get sent back to Pennsylvania on recruiting service. And Colonel McNeil, as they're leaving, Roy Stone was the major of the 13th Reserves. Langhorne Worcester was captain of Company B.
Right.
And as they're making their way home, Hugh McNeil sends a letter to Governor Curtin basically saying, listen, we've been kicking ass. We have a really good reputation. And they did legitimately at the time. Like, nobody really has heard of them at this point. But, in the late 19th century, these were very well-known people.
Right.
Why don't we recruit an additional brigade of them? Because if one regiment's good, 5's got to be great.
So in other words,
Curtin,
let's replicate the success we had.
Let's do this again 4 times over.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they start to do that. They get authorized to raise a 4-regiment brigade of Bucktails in Pennsylvania. They set about doing it. They get the 149th and 150th recruited, and then the the Second Manassas campaign is happening. And Lee's going to start moving into Maryland, and so recruiting shuts off. Like, we need what you have right now, right now.
Right.
And so the 149th and 150th get sent to D.C. They are Bucktail Regiments. They've been authorized by the governor to wear bucktails, which is where the fight really kind of starts, is the 13th Reserves, even though these regiments have been recruited by their own officers at the behest of their regimental commander, and they're largely officered by old Bucktails. A lot of them were NCOs in the original 13th Reserves and took commissions in the 149th and 150th. They're not happy about that at all. They don't like the fact that they are just calling themselves Bucktails outright. They think that they should be calling themselves either New Bucktails or the second and third Bucktails.
Bucktail Jr.
Originally, they are very upset that these guys are wearing Bucktails at all.
Right.
But eventually they recognize the fact that they've been authorized by the governor to do this.
Now, the Bucktails, the original Bucktails, the real Bucktails, how did they get the Bucktails?
So that one, the first 3 companies to be recruited were done by Thomas Kane, who's actually technically in command of a brigade over on Culp's Hill here.
Right.
Green Candy Cane.
Yeah, exactly. Even though Cobham's really leading it. Kane
was sick here? Is that what it was?
Yeah,
he was sick.
He was sick for a couple months beforehand. He ended up catching up to the Army on July 2nd, which... hell of a day to catch up, but he's still sick. But anyways, he originally proposed to Governor Curtin to raise a regiment of cavalry in northwestern PA. But they tell him that the government will not accept cavalry. It's going to be infantry or nothing.
Yeah.
So he offers, to start raising infantry out of hardy woodsmen and lumbermen and raftsmen and marksmen. Essentially, guys who are used to living out in the woods with little to nothing. So the first 3 companies are Company C from Cameron County, G from Elk County, and I from McKean County. Kane had made his headquarters at the Smethport, a hotel in Smethport, close to where the courthouse is now. And one of the guys who enlisted in company I was a guy named James Landrigan. He was a lumberman. He went in. They say he's the first one who signs the roll. I don't know if that's true. I know it's very early on. They say he's the first. I don't really have much reason to question that. Yeah. But he then sees this deer hide hanging up outside of a butcher shop across the street. So he walks over. He takes the knife out of his pocket and he cuts the tail off and he pins it to his hat. And he promptly goes back to the recruiting office. Kane sees this and is like overjoyed that they have a symbol now,
right? It's like
that
OMG.
They can rally around, yeah. And so the call kind of goes out. Hey, we're going to be the Bucktails,
right.
And you guys are going to wear a piece of a deer on your head.
And they wear all tails.
Yeah, it was the cover for a deer's ass. But the original ones, so they James Landrigan gets the tail off of this original hide.
Right.
There are no more hanging there.
Right.
So these guys all go across the street and they basically cut tail-shaped strips
Right.
out of this hide, and they're pinning them to their hats until they can get
actual tail.
deer tails. Yeah. Bob loves to tell the story about, you to join the Bucktail Regiment, you had to go out and shoot a buck. That's not true. That really kind of comes from myth.
Yes.
That's a lot of that comes out of a book done by a guy named Glover back in the 50s called Buck-tailed Wildcats. And if you guys ever come across a historical reference book that doesn't contain any footnotes or bibliography, it's probably not that historically accurate. And his wasn't. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Very good, Eric. Thank you very much for that there. Okay. Charlie, we are about finished.
Okay.
Those were all the questions. Is there anything you would like to add?
What, in questions? I have many.
If there was...
No, I think we did a good job. I appreciate Eric.
Oh, you did a great
in.
job, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Eric, very good, Eric.
Thank you for letting me hijack this.
Oh no! You
No,
earned it.
I like to listen to you talk about the Bucktail, or not the Bucktails, the reserves.
Sure.
Because, I mean, we'll just stand around sometimes, a few of us, and then somebody mentions the reserves, and then he goes off.
That's me.
That's you. Yeah, we knew it.
You did a very good job, Eric. Thank you very much for that. And thank you, Charlie, for coming on.
Thanks for asking me.
Always. Thank you all for listening. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Turn the notifications on. Support our sponsors. That helps out. And, of course, become a patron at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. And there, Eric will talk about when he used to do PT in his underwear. Back in the Army. I don't know. We're making this up just to get the ladies to join. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a good day. All right, and we are done.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, man.
It was very good. Very good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.